The Centers for Spiritual Living Diversity Inclusion Commission welcomes you to Being an Effective Change Agent, Part 2, with our presenter, Reverend Rafe A. Ellis. And so we are recording. Want to ask everybody if you're having bandwidth issues or if you're moving around to turn your camera off. That can be done down in the bottom left corner with the camera icon. To just click on it, it puts a line through it, and that way you know you're not visible on screen. Also, same thing with the mute, with the microphone icon. If you do need to chat, the chat function is on. You can use that. And out of respect for everybody, just be mindful that even if you do unmute to speak, that you don't have the TV on or a radio going or your phone happening in the background. And also in the bottom function there, in the participants, there is a raise hand function. And so the more we agree to use that, the more quickly we can get to see who wants to speak and we don't talk over top of one another. So appreciate everybody using those. We're going to start with an opening prayer. I'm going to stop the screen share, and I have asked my friend, Reverend Devine Joy Young, to pray us in.
Thanks, Reverend Rafe. Okay, everybody. I'm going to ask that you all just be comfortable in your seats. Take a breath in, breathing in all that is good and wonderful and fantastic. And exhale anything that you need to let go of so that you can be fully present for our time together. Again, breathing in, knowing that everything we're breathing in is good and very good, and releasing that which no longer serves us for this time together. And giving great thanks for the one that is in and through absolutely everything, always present. It is within each and every one of us here, each and every one of us that will listen to this recording later, and knowing that we've come here together in a sacred, safe space to listen, not only with our ears, but in consciousness. And I am so grateful for Reverend Rafe for being the one to lead us with a loving heart in all kinds of possibilities this evening, so that we are far more aware and awake than we were before we started this time shared. And anything we really do need to put aside, I know we've already done it to be fully present. This is a sacred time, and we have the safety to speak truthfully, authentically, and to know that we're here to grow and expand and to be better than we were just a little while ago, to be wiser, to be more kind and more compassionate. So just calling this time good and very good, I am giving thanks, knowing it is perfect just as it is, as we've gathered here tonight. And if you'll all just anchor it with me by saying, and so it is, we'll let it be. Thank you.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Thank you, beloved. So right from the start, I want to personally make sure that I sing the praises and my gratitude for Reverend Michelle Senegal for being willing to jump in and cover my back at literally the last minute. For those of you that were here on Monday night, I was under an immediate get what you can grab and get out, fire evacuation from the Jones Fire in Nevada County, California. And so there are some things I will resist and push back against, and some things I just say, okay. And so thank you, each of you, those of you that were here Monday night, that rolled with the changes, and huge, huge gratitude to my sister, Reverend Michelle Senegal, for just taking hold and running with it. So I want to recap real quickly. I've been in conversation with her and just want to recap what she shared real briefly. And then I want to make sure that as briefly as I can, we cover the actual cycles, the cycle of change and the different stages in it. Because if we have any hope at all of being an effective change agent, we have to understand how change happens. And it happens with perfect regularity of certain stages. And it happens at the individual level before it happens at an organizational level. And as we go through these stages, keep in mind that each of us is in a change process at the individualized level. And so, however many people are involved in a change process organizationally, that's how many people you have in potentially different stages of the change cycle trying to come together to create an organizational change cycle. So I think as we zip through this real quickly, you'll begin to grasp at a different level why the change process is as bumpy as it seems to be. So let's zip right through these. Here we go. So I just want to review the quotes that Ernest Holmes gave us. Because everything changes rapidly around us, it is difficult to vision a changeless reality. And yet, change is the law of human experience, for only God is permanent. And so what the source is never changes. And yet our experience of it is always changing. So she went over the characteristics of an effective change agent: being courageous, highly motivated, advocate, empathic, a risk taker, highly motivated, influencer, and or ally. So here's what can get in the way of some of those stages, is what's called a hierarchy of commitment. Let me move this floating thing out of the way. There we go. The hierarchy of commitment. Down at the very bottom is the committed resistors, that I will not do it and I will influence others not to do it. The next level up, we have the folks that are in the complaint department of why should I do it if nobody else is going to do it? And yet, oftentimes in that space, we will complain that a change needs to happen, but yet are not ready to participate in making it happen. Compliance is the next level up, and I will share with you in my experience as an organizational consultant and as a registered addiction specialist, compliance is the most dangerous category in this hierarchy, because compliance is where people just acquiesce. They're not really invested in the change. They're doing it because they feel like they have to, and it looks like change is happening when nothing is really changing. And then we have the commitment, where people are invested. They are totally on board. I will lead others to do it. I'm on board. I'm going to do it. And I suspect, if we're each being honest with ourselves, we have all been in each of these categories at some point on some change issue. So let's do a quick overview of this change cycle. The first is pre-contemplation. Pre-contemplation is either our conscious or unconscious comfort zone, where we are perfectly content, no change is necessary. The next stage, something will happen that moves us to an increased awareness that leads us into a stage of contemplation where we're at least willing to consider that maybe, just maybe, change is necessary and even possible. Now, you'll notice this revert reclaim arrow there. You're going to see that between every stage, because we as human beings will ping pong back and forth between these stages. We'll get a little bit of awareness, and then we slide right back into our comfort zone. And we go back and forth before we move into an actual stage of preparation and intention setting. And that's where we've really grasped that, okay, a change would really be helpful here. And so let me start planning for it. This is the state in organizations where strategic planning begins to happen. And then there's an implementation, and we begin to experience the change. If it's in our personal lives, we're making personal changes and beginning to live differently. Organizationally, we're making organizational changes. We're implementing a strategic plan and beginning to live differently as an organization. As we do that, we become acclimated to the change, and we begin to maintain that change. Over time, ta-da, that change becomes the new culture, the new norm, and woohoo, we've actually completed that change. At that point, it's highly unlikely that there is a reversion back to the change cycle with that particular change. And so I'm going to come out of this right now, and we're going to look at going into some groups and doing some work with this. But before I do that, any questions, comments, anything come up around those cycles of change? Tried to make it as clear as possible. So raise your hand and we can find you. Give it a few minutes. Not seeing any hands. Oh, there we go. Charlie, can you see those? If not, I'll grab them. Okay, so Reverend Sherry Johnson.
I'm looking at the pictures and they make perfect sense, except that each of those arrows had 3 heads on them.
Right.
And I understood too that was the third one an escape hatch?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Thank you for catching that. The third one is abandonment of the change process, complete abandonment. And you'll notice those were every place. And so it is highly likely that we abandon the change process anywhere in that cycle. Good catch. Thank you. Scheherazade, I probably just butchered your name, love. I did not intend to.
I think it's Scheherazade, right?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for unmuting. Yes. It's Scheherazade, that's right.
Thank you.
I was wondering, is this like the mourning process, or do we have to go through all the stages? Or, because I'm thinking there's some people that don't necessarily experience all the stages and still are able to make change.
All of the studies that I've read and my 30 years as a consultant and an addiction specialist, each stage, people may spend different amounts of time in each stage, but there's really no way to skip a stage. We can fly through a stage. Mm-hmm. You know, it may be a momentary blip, but you know, there's that moment that we move from being unaware that a change is necessary to being really aware that a change is necessary to becoming ready to make it. And that can happen very quickly depending on the impetus for the change. If it's a catastrophic event in an individual's life, that whole change process can happen very quickly, but each stage does get gone through.
Thank you.
I can't find the little click thing. Just,
Okay.
sorry. I get that there's research and there might be technical psychological things about that.
Mhm.
I will say over a lifetime, it's anecdotal evidence, I suppose, but I have not looked at the research on that. I have actually never found that to be true. almost never. Sometimes it is. Sometimes people are resistant and then buy in slowly. But there really are those of us on the planet that embrace change, that it's alien, those other levels, completely alien. And we have no recollection of ever been through them. Maybe we're in more of a minority than I thought, but just a voice in the wilderness on that.
All righty. Thank you.
Yeah.
Stephen,
Stephen has his hand up. Go ahead, Stephen.
Yes, I have a good question. In the Big Book of AA, it says that the spiritual toolkit is what we need to transform ourselves and others. Do you see that parallel?
I caught part of that because your audio is really breaking up. So I didn't catch enough of it. If you back up a little bit from the microphone.
Okay, that better?
Yes, much better.
Okay. What is the parallel between the spiritual toolkit of the Big Book of AA that transforms our own selves and is the toolkit we use to transform others? Do you see the parallel?
I would say the parallel is there's lots of tools available. And it is, in fact, I was just having this conversation with somebody the other day. It's a good idea to have a lot of different tools in our toolkit because everybody does it different. And so spiritual transformation is going to happen differently for different people. So the change process is going to happen differently for different people. And each of these stages of change, we will each use different tools in each of those stages. This is just giving us an overview of what's happening in the change cycle where we can begin to identify, oh, that's where I'm at and that's what's blocking me, and begin to extrapolate that to an organizational level. Does that answer your question?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, very good.
Yes.
Would you please put the picture up one more time?
Yeah, go along with that.
Thank you.
That may be the easiest request all night. That was easy. Absolutely. So how many, well, I realize I'm not really in a room where I can see everybody's hands. So hopefully I have become so accustomed to Zoom, it's like a normal room now. That's interesting. For those of you that were here on Monday night, part of what was asked was to come back to this discussion with something that you wanted to change in your personal life and something that you thought might need to change in Centers for Spiritual Living. Okay. And so I want to toss up real quickly while the model is fresh in your mind. I want to toss up a poll, and this is a totally anonymous poll just to get you a little bit engaged here about where you are in the cycles of change with your own personal process and where you think other folks are with the change that you think needs to happen organizationally. So let me launch this poll real quickly. And it won't take just a couple of seconds for everybody to respond to. This is the first time I've used the poll, and it's really interesting on my side. I'm watching little lines go back and forth as people log in. It's pretty trippy.
So I'm like, I can only get like the beginning of the second question. Does it need to, it's like it's not allowing me to pull it down.
Go over to the right.
So all I get is,
So let me, does that help at all? I mean, I can scroll it on my screen, but I don't know if that moves it on yours.
is anybody else having that problem? I can't scroll it.
You can
scroll
scroll
mine.
down with your mouse.
There's
I
a,
can't
Yeah, I'm
scroll
using
it
my
either.
mouse. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't do it.
I can't.
I was able to see the whole thing. If you click and change your view to move out,
It's gone now.
It's on. Yeah.
All right, let me. So here are the results. 3% are in pre-contemplation with the question, where are you in the cycle of change with respect to what you want to see changed in yourself? 3% in pre-contemplation, 11% in contemplation, 34% in preparation, 31 in the experience, 17 in maintenance, and one person has completed the change they want. Awesome. Now, let's see how that fleshes out differently with the organization. Where are you in the cycle of change with respect to what you want to see change in the CSL as an organization? Still 11% in pre-contemplation, jumps up to 37% in contemplation, 31% in preparation, 20% in experience, and nobody's in maintenance or completion. And that just makes us all, are you ready for this? You may not have been accused of this lately, quite normal. Makes us all very normal. So what I want to do is put us in breakout rooms. And here's the invitation to come up very quickly with one thing in the group. Pick one thing to change that you think would benefit the organization by changing it. One change that you think would benefit the organization. And then try to reach consensus on how to affect that change, paying attention to where you are with that particular change in the process and where you perceive the group as a whole to be in that change cycle. Because you may be in experience and the group as a whole may be solidly in pre-contemplation. So just kind of pay attention to where you fall and where the group is falling. It's just an experience how very differently we can show up versus how the group shows up. because this is a huge part of wrapping ourselves around being an effective change agent. So, and I recognize sometimes I am clear as mud. So anybody need any further explanation on what we're going to do in the breakouts? Yes.
Hi, sorry.
Okay.
Just can you repeat the first umbrella thing that you said that we're going to do in the breakouts again, please?
Yes. As quickly as you can, come to agreement about, and it doesn't have to be an actual change, it can be hypothetical, but come to an agreement about a change that you think would benefit CSL as an organization, as a group. Come to an agreement about that really quickly.
Are we talking about, oh, sorry.
And then try to walk it through the stages. What would that look like?
So is this change just what kind of, in relation to what?
This, it's wide open. The Centers for Spiritual Living as an organization.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, if some of you came with ideas, toss those in the group. Any other questions? Okay, so how many folks do we have? 47. So let me do 8 groups. Breakout rooms, there we go. So I'm just going to randomly pump you in these. And so when it comes up, just say, yep, I'll go, and off you'll go.
How long do we have?
Probably about 20 minutes. Yeah. Welcome back for wherever you have been.
I just want to say, Faith, invite me after COVID. I will come.
Well, there you go.
Sandria, where are you?
You're muted.
I'm in Oakland. I'm at Heart and Soul Center.
Okay.
Hi, Faith.
Hi, Anasora.
I didn't know you were here. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you too.
All right, do we have everybody back? So before we get distracted with anything, I'm going to pop up the poll that just gets input on the group experience of this. So here you go. Looks like we're at 87% have checked in. So we'll give it another 30 seconds here and then I'll close it out. All righty. So let's see where this one wound up. share the results there. So the first question, where was your group in the cycle of change with respect to what you want to see changed? And the majority were clearly in the contemplation stage. And interestingly enough, almost is the exact same percentage in the same stage from where was your group in the cycle of change with respect to what the group wanted to change. That's actually unusual and encouraging to me. This is good stuff. So I want to address something before we move on. Someone had asked in the chat about that change model, whether or not it was based on research, and absolutely. It is the trans-theoretical change model by Prochaska and DiClemente, and I will put that in the chat. So if you want to do further research on that, if you Google that, you will get so much information. It will keep you busy for quite some time.
Okay, thank you. It's further discussion later at another time.
Absolutely. Yes. So take a little bit of time for folks to check in, and it's not so much about what change surfaced, but how was the process for you as an individual and as part of a group? Because for most of us, doing a change in our own life is very different than participating in a change process in a group setting. So how was your experience?
Okay, I'll take up the silence. We had a quadratic group of 4 people all over the country and stuff. Very participatory, very receptive, brainstorming, and people had equal time among us, and engaging and receptive to one another's thoughts. Group 6.
Awesome. So we got some hands up. John? John Adams.
Yes. Hi. Hey, Rev Rafe. Yeah, I thought we had a wonderful, wonderful group. And what I really liked about the experience is that there was a lot of agreement. But what I found for me personally was that I would think about something and someone would say something and I would bring something up in me, and then there would invariably be somebody else who will say it so beautifully and just hit the nail on the head. And that was what was fun about the sort of popcorning that happened. You know, just the ideas came and somebody always had a great turn of phrase or a great way to share. And we just had a really great experience.
Awesome. Stephen, you're the next one with your hand up, sir.
I really enjoyed the experience and the conversation. I see that we're in the maintenance part because so many of us are maintaining our cycle of change. And so I really saw, as we shared different aspects, that we were maintaining our integrity.
All right. Who else wants to be brave and share their experience?
Can I interrupt for just a moment? Stephen is breaking up really badly. So, Reverend, if you can you repeat what he said? Because
I'm hearing it the same you are, love.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's important to know what he said.
Yeah, he can put it in the chat. I sent you a note, a private note.
Okay.
Put it in the chat what you said.
Yeah, because your audio is consistently breaking up, and so we're catching bits and pieces.
Okay.
It's important. We want to know what you said.
Okay. How do I do it?
Down at the very bottom, almost in the middle, you'll see a little bubble there that says chat. If you click on that, then put your cursor in the little message box and type in what you had to say and hit enter. It'll go to everybody so we can see it. We can then read it. So I'm going to mute you for now because you're frozen. So that tells me you're having internet connection stuff that I can't do anything about from here.
Oh yeah, mute me, please.
Okay. All right, Gwen.
So I would just like to say that we had an enjoyable conversation. A lot of us were on the same page with the concerns that we did have, and we shared those with one another. And it was really it was a good experience being able to talk to people from so many different places. The people that were in the group were all over the place. And so it was really nice to see this, not just my local area and people that I'm familiar with and situations that we're familiar with, but yet we're all experiencing very much the same things.
Excellent. Anybody find that they were at a really different place in their personal change cycle than the group seemed to be? Well, then organizational change should be really easy for us.
So something, Rev Rafe, something I noticed. Oh, and you know what? I think I just went on top of Zulma. I mean, you go ahead. I'll share.
Thank you. Thank you. So opinions differed in our group, and we were within the last 10 seconds, and there was no consensus. I wish for another minute or two. We just didn't. Different people sharing, and then it seemed to be going in one direction, but we didn't have a chance before had to come back here to talk about whether or not we didn't actually come to a consensus. I'm complete.
Awesome. And thank you for sharing that, because in a short exercise like this where there hasn't been any pre-planning, that is a very common experience, because it takes a while to even begin to get the conversation clear, much less to come to consensus. So thank you for speaking that into the room. Rebecca?
Yeah, I loved our group, and it's interesting to think back on it because we had some great conversations, but we didn't right away figure out how to coalesce to one idea. We bounced to a number, and that was fun. It was really fun, and we kind of identified where in the change process some of those ideas are, because some of them are things that the organization is doing and at various stages. So to the best of our knowledge, it was fun to kind of look at that. But what was neat is right before we got called back, we did kind of coalesce into, in my understanding, more of a central idea. And that was a neat experience to watch that happen too. So I was grateful for it.
Fabulous. Let's get a couple more, and then we're going to shift to some really valuable information that we all need to have to know how to be seriously effective change agents within Centers for Spiritual Living. Who else wants to share? A couple more. Nobody else? Billy?
Because it doesn't.
You're muted there, Billy.
There
There we go.
There we go.
Okay. Our group, we talked more about the need for real dynamic speakers and revs. And we seem to be at a spot where we're training a lot of ministers and who know a lot, but aren't real dynamic. And we seem to have moved away or are not emphasizing that. And there's, the bottom line is what I've seen, and because me and my wife, we play musical inspiration all around the country doing this, and the dynamic speakers bring the people into the building. And the people that aren't dynamic, that may be a newer minister that know a lot, won't draw people. And we had in our group, we had people from ministers to practitioners to not practitioners who were all very capable and dynamic speakers who were not getting an opportunity to show that.
So
And I
how do
think
you
that-
see, where do you see that in the cycles of change?
I see that in the cycle of change, in the actual education process.
Well, no.
And identifying that.
I'm talking the pre-contemplation, contemplation.
We were in the contemplation stage. Because
Okay.
we were talking about, we'd identified it, we talked about it a little bit, but like,
Mhm.
how do you do this and all that? That's all, you're in a whole nother world doing that.
Awesome.
But it's identifying a thing that doesn't seem to be one of the, it doesn't seem to have a lot of emphasis in the education process.
Hold on to that, because when we get to how to fit into and participate and engage in the organizational change process with CSL, you may get some information on how to actually participate in that process.
That'd be great.
Awesome. So I got one more hand up. Suzanne, all yours.
Yeah, I have a process question, and that is, I mean, I feel like our group, we reached consensus on what we thought the main issue was, and there was some really good discussion around some actions that could be taken. And I'm wondering how that's going to get captured, because I'm already writing Reverend Jay an email saying we should do this one particular thing that came up in our group. So
Well, it sounds to me like it just got captured.
but I'm curious what the other groups came up with as well, and I would, like.
Right, and I get that, and that we can look at having a different webinar for that. This wasn't a webinar to generate that. This was really a webinar to give folks an actual hands-on experience with the change process through a different lens. So I think you
All right,
might,
thanks.
yeah, I think in this next part of it, there might be some avenues where those of you that had really aha moments in your groups are the capturers of those, and we'll see avenues where you can move those forward. So with that, I'm going to do real briefly a screen share of the organizational slide from last night, and then we're going to move into a little bit of a different conversation. So this is the model we left with. Now, in terms of change management, how that process happens is pretty standardized, although not a one-size-fits-all by any stretch. There's a request for change. That request for change is analyzed based on the impact that it is likely to have within the organization, which includes the individuals and groups and different subsets. That request is then either approved or denied. If it's approved, then there's a whole process of getting it to the implementation stage. The change is implemented, the change is reviewed, there's reporting, and then there's refinement. So understand that in that process, what is happening in each individual engaged in that process and the groups that are engaged in that process is this cycle of change within that organizational change process. So our executive director, Reverend Sonia Byrne, is with us to give us some framework about how Centers for Spiritual Living is organized and the avenues of engagement that you can actually participate in to be a part of the change you want to see. Reverend Sonia.
I think we were very near a quote there, weren't we? Be the change you wish to see in the world. And serving in our organization is certainly a way to be in sacred service and to be part of what we see in maintaining and molding any change that comes forward for Centers for Spiritual Living. I have the great honor, and I'm very blessed to be your executive director for Centers for Spiritual Living. I am one of a 4-person executive team, however, and 2 of my colleagues are here tonight, so I'd like them to come forward to say hello. We are also without our 4th tonight, and that is Dr. Edward Fillion, and he is the spiritual leader. But we do have Dr. Sharon Hudson with us tonight, the field leader. Dr. Sharon, could you unmute and say hello?
Hi, everybody. It's a wonderful thing to be part of the executive team.
And then we have our chair for our Leadership Council for Centers for Spiritual Living, and that is Kurt Conde.
Hello, everyone. It's an honor to serve you in this way. Thank you.
Wonderful. So we have some information for you tonight that can help you be a change agent inside of Centers for Spiritual Living. And we have some pieces that really go from less formal to more formal ways of being that change agent. So let's get started. I know Rebecca's going to post in the chat some of the things that we're saying and some of the references so that that can be captured for you. So in terms of being a change agent, you can be a change agent at the community level in your CSL member community or the ministry or the work that you are part of. And you can also be in a more formal way of being a change agent inside the larger organization. So locally, you have opportunities to be part of committees, to bring ideas forward to your local board, and indeed to also be a participant on your board. And because each center is microcosm of the organization, that is very similar to what happens in a more formal way within Centers for Spiritual Living. The decisions that are made inside the organization and all of the components that have created our governing documents have been proposed and decided upon by our approximately 700 delegate community around the world. So each time we have a resolution or something to vote on or people to vote on, that delegate community is the group that votes. So unlike a corporate entity where that would be more top down and decisions would be made in a management team and then handed down, this is a very much a participatory process. And so we'll carry on with a couple of other more formal ways here to be part of being a change agent or creating change inside the organization. I'd like to bring Dr. Sharon Hudson forward. Committees are a wonderful way. So beyond your community, the next way that you could participate in creating change is through committee involvement. And Dr. Sharon oversees our current committee list for the organization. Dr. Sharon?
You know, we have about 40 councils and committees, and the councils are elected at our annual convention. The members rotate, they have 3-year terms. And our committees focus on many different aspects of the organization. So if you want to be a change agent, serving on one of those councils or committees is the first place to jump in. We also sometimes have working teams. Right now we have a youth and family ministry working team. They're working on creating resources for the 2021 themes for our communities, for their youth and family ministries. So and there are 45 people interested in being on that team. And we just put the word out about a week and a half ago, and boom, we have a lot of activity there. Right now, I would say that the largest need we have is we have a lot of ministers and practitioners that are active at the higher levels in the organization and on committees, but we are always seeking members, and we are always looking for diversity in every way, in every way, geographically and every other way you can think of to serve on our committees. And we are moving into being a global organization. So we are going to be sending out a list of openings, opportunities for you or people you may know that would like to be involved in helping a CSL be all that it can be and touch as many lives as it possibly can, because people are hungry for this all around the world. And we're doing wonderful, amazing things touching lives. So you can be part of this, even if you're just pointing to someone and getting them involved, it would be helpful. But most especially, we'll be looking now in February at our VISTA convention. We'll be electing new people to every single council. And so there's opportunities for members, and we really need more members to run. Last year, or this year in 2020 at our convention, and we didn't even have enough members running to fill all the member vacancies on our council. So we had to fill those by appointment. So I'm just encouraging you to look for that list when it comes out. I would say in the next week or maybe a little longer than that. Right now we're in the process of reviewing all the committees on the list and to see where the vacancies may be. And I also work with all the regional support coordinators, and we'll have about 4 of them terming out, and we'll be looking maybe for new people to serve as regional support coordinators. So just keep your eyes peeled if you're interested in serving, and keep your eyes peeled even if you don't have the time right now yourself, but you may know some great resources that would bring skills, talent, innovative ideas to the organization. So thank you. Thank you for being on the call. It's just really good to see you all and talk with you all. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you, Dr. Sharon. And it's a perfect time to be having this conversation as well, because in the fall, we head into opening up for new candidates and go through an election process. I'll tell you a little bit about how that begins, and then I'm going to hand it over to our chair who's intimately involved with that. So Dr. Sharon mentioned councils. We have councils that represent the different constituent groups inside of our organization. So we have a member lady council, a practitioner council, and a minister council. And there are 6 seats on each of those. And there are rotating people each year because there are terms and people coming on and off. So you will see as we open up candidacy in the fall that there will be spots on all of those councils. If you're called into the highest level of leadership, that is a consensus-driven board, it's the Leadership Council, then we also have 9 spots on that board. And as the Leadership Council, again, people are rotating on and off each year with 3-year terms. So you'll see some of those vacancies as well. And so we've got 3 councils with 6 people, the Leadership Council with 9. We have a new council, also the Retired Ministers Council, which this is their year in place, actually. And unlike the other board councils that are more working councils who are involved all throughout the year in representing their groups, the Retired Ministers Council was designed to give our retired ministers a voice at the convention each year in the annual meeting and voting on the resolutions. They are change agents to help contribute shaping the decisions inside the organization, even if they are retired ministers. So even that voice is heard. So we take all measures to ensure voices are heard all across the organization. Now I'm going to bring our chair, Kurt Conde, forward, and not only is he able to talk with you about what's coming up for candidating because he's on the nominating council, but unlike myself, who is a hired individual, Kurt is one of the other 3 members of the executive team who went through that candidating process himself and was selected. So he can speak from that experience as well. Kurt?
Thank you, Reverend Sonia. This is an exciting part that we can all participate in coming up, because it is very important that we staff our leadership council with great voices, people who are skilled and people of different backgrounds and experience who can share that perspective to make one good global decision. And this is where we can all participate. I sit on the nominating council along with Reverend Rafe. And it is a very open process. It begins in October, and on the 6th, nominations will open up. If you get notice of this meeting, which you have, I'm sure you will get the notice of when nominations open, and any of us can nominate someone to become a candidate for Leadership Council, the Practitioner Council, or the Lay Member Council. And most often our lay members are the last to know that there is an opportunity or that they should be doing that. Our ministers are often very busy and thinking, that's not for me. Sometimes I love the cycle of change, because there's the unconscious contemplation where somebody else is thinking, hey, this is a great job for you. And that's why these nominations are going to open up on October 6th, and we run them through the middle of November. They'll close on November 16th. And there's 6 weeks in there to make sure everyone has time. You can nominate yourself or someone else. And the reason there's 6 weeks is there is this contemplation time for people to be called into service. Most often, and most of the people in our leadership were called into service by other people. They don't normally think that, hey, I should be sitting at this table making these decisions. And being invited in is a very important step. Recognizing someone saying, hey, I am nominating you for this council in this position so you can share your experience with our organization is an honor. And we love to get those, let them know what that is, put them into the pre-contemplation stage where they're like, what? Me? I don't even know that there was one of these. What do they do? Where do they meet? How does this work? How would I possibly fit in? And they can accept that nomination. That when they are nominated, they'll be advised of the process and be able to prepare, be able to understand, get a little bit educated about what the responsibilities and duties are, what our expectations are, and how that will benefit them personally as well as their local communities. There's another point there that, the diversity that we want to see. We really need to find our lay members and different voices for this council. And that's where all of you will come in to look for people in your community, people that you know from other communities. I love to hear those who travel and meet other people. They'll be able to help us a lot with nominations and selection, getting ready for our votes. One last thing. I can remember what it is. And that is this year. In the past, we've done our interviews, which have made it a little bit intimidating during the election process. It looks just like your screen does now. And all the candidates for the same position will come forward and answer the same question in turn. This year, candidates will be interviewed separately so that you'll get a time to, if you are a candidate, speak and let people get to know you, and not have to say, hey, follow the one answer, or say, I liked what this person said, and end up campaigning for somebody else. There'll be some time for you to prepare, time for you to elaborate on your ideas and thoughts, and really let people get to know our candidates. We're going to help them prepare in every way. So let them know if you're going to be a candidate or you're nominating someone else, that the process this year will be more thorough, more complete, even better than before. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. And if for some reason being a candidate isn't something that you're called to do in this particular year, every person owes it to themselves to follow the communication cycle that begins in September, announcing all of these dates and such, to follow the interviews, to be aware. And each community, according to its size, also has a number of delegates. So whether you're a delegate or your community has delegates, It's a great idea for delegates and the community to have a conversation around the interviews. Some communities even get together and watch them. Some communities, their ministers hold meetings to answer questions and discuss the candidates, the resolutions that are presented, etc. So as a delegate, that's also another level of contribution as a change agent. Now, in my role, I happen to oversee the elections team that works really closely in that process that begins October 6th that Kurt had mentioned. And prior to that, we have an annual report that goes out to every community. And the annual report will take place in October. And it is during this annual report experience that your minister and the administrator in your center undertake that the delegates for the upcoming February election of candidates and also any decisions on resolutions that are put forward for changes and amendments in the organization, those delegates are named in the annual report. So every minister running a community needs to be sure that their community completes their annual report, because that is how you get to have a voice in the organization. Very important that that's completed. You get your delegates, and your delegates will vote for you in February. They'll be part of the voting for your community. Okay. So I'd like to share my screen for a moment, Rafe. Much of what we're speaking about today can be found in 2 of our 3 governing documents. So we have a bylaws document, and we have policies and procedures, and we have something we call the ODM, the Organizational Design Model. So I'm going to just share where you can find them. So if you go to ourcsl.org as a member of a CSL community, you'll be able to go into this screen, and right here at the top, Business and Administration, when you go in there, you will see that, let me just get over to go down a little. You'll be able to see that there is the most up-to-date bylaws there, as well as the ODM, the Organizational Design Model. The description of much of what Sharon, Kurt, and I have talked to you about here tonight around committees, the number of people, etc., in them, and how to qualify to be a candidate, and the process that we go through is all in there, along with other important documents as a change agent and as just a member of CSL. You want to know, are they there? And this is about your committees and councils. These are council meeting minutes, our finances, etc. Organizational contacts are all in there. So that is a one-stop shop for you to go find what is happening in the organization in terms of the way that we are governed. Now, I'm going to bookend my time with you. I started by saying that we are an organization that is run by the delegates' decisions that create the governing documents, the decisions that are made each year, changes, amendments, resolutions. Those are the guiding documents that people like Dr. Sharon, Dr. Edward, Kurt, myself, and the Leadership Council and all of our councils use to govern our decision making in day-to-day situations and when questions come to us. So I'd like you to know how important those are and how important it is to have a basic understanding of what's there. The last thing I'll say is that if you want to make a change or recommend a change for the organization, you usually find a category inside one of those documents that addresses what is already occurring. And so you may have a recommendation for something new, for something to be eliminated, or for something to be changed. And you can get that proposal, that request through to the Leadership Council, to the chair, Kurt Conde, who you heard from tonight, and he will hear that and bring it to the Leadership Council. Now, there's some timeframes that are important here, because if you want it to be heard and posed at the February annual meeting each year, you need to get that in at least 120 days prior to, and that brings us into around October time. So if you want to propose something, have a discussion, it gets forwarded into Kurt. Kurt will work with the executive team and work with the individual who's brought forward the request for change to get it worded into a way that can be considered as a possible a request for change, resolution, or amendment. And that will go to the Leadership Council for consideration, and the person will hear back from the Leadership Council as to their proposal. And this is how, when we end up in the annual meeting in February, we have a list of resolutions to vote on. These are changes or new items or eliminations, removals that have come forward as suggestions. And that is the path to having those heard on an organizational level. So I know we gave you lots of information. Rebecca, you have nimble fingers here tonight. I see things flying by in the chat. Thank you so much for staying with us. And Reverend Rafe, thank you so much to you and the Diversity Inclusion Commission for giving us an opportunity to be part of your experience here tonight. Thank you.
Absolutely. And so before we wrap up, I'm going to let Charlie announce our next webinars that are coming up. I know he's here somewhere, but I don't see him on my screen.
I'm here.
There he is. In outer space still.
Yeah. I just don't have it in front of me.
Do you want me to announce them?
Sure, Lynn, go ahead.
Lynn would have it.
Greetings, everybody. Our webinar for September is going to be titled Voices of the Next Generation, and it's going to be a panel, and it's going to include our dear Rebecca, who is online currently, Lucian Baker, Reverend Savannah Riker, Latoya Lopez, and Reverend Masondo are going to be our panelists, and that's going to be for Monday. And on Tuesday, we're having a multi-generational conversation. So we're going to have a variety of different panelists, and we're going to talk about communication among the generations. So it's going to be really good. So hope you can join us in September, the 21st and the 22nd. I think that's the dates.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So before we pray out, here's what everything inside of me wants everything inside of you to know. The fact that you showed up tonight says that you are an engaged change agent. Okay, so you've already entered into the process, and I encourage you, short of getting on my knees and outright begging you, to trust the divine ideas of infinite intelligence that bubble up within you, even if they don't make sense to you. Okay? If I only did what made sense in my life, I would be sitting somewhere in a tight little box, not moving most days. Let's dare to tap into the infinite intelligence that is our intelligence. Let's dare to push out of that comfort zone of pre-contemplation. And even if the resulting maintenance change is different than the idea that popped up, know that it couldn't get there without your idea. It takes a lot of different gears to make a machine run effectively. It takes oil to make it run. So everything that comes alive in you has a place. Trust that. Find an avenue to get engaged. Let go of your investment in being right and having control of the outcome, and join the process. And I'm going to ask if she's still on here. I can't see her on my screen no more. Where'd you go, D. Jacqueline? Are you still with me, D. Jacqueline, or did you leave? She might have left. I was going to tag her.
No, I'm here. Oh, no, she's there.
There she is.
Hi.
Because I can. I'm just going to tag you to pray us out.
Because you can. Because you can, and you know I can't say no to you.
That's right.
So I begin with gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. And I do invite us to take a breath because the breath is our most immediate reminder of the all the time, 24/7, 365 presence of the divine in, as, and through each one of us, in, as, and through everything that we've talked about, we've expressed, we've felt, we've interacted with this evening, and everything that we've learned that we can use in the now, in the future, and learn that we can use in our present in this expression, including Irene's alarm, in this expression that we call Centers for Spiritual Living. And so it is with an attitude, a sense of both gratitude and big, 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 juicy love for all that we are and all that we are becoming, that I release this gathering, I release each one of us to a joy-filled rest of the evening, as well as everything that happens between now and when next we meet, being a point of grace, love, light, and humility. Thank you, Father, Mother, God. I release this word and this gathering to the immutable perfect law that always and in always simply says yes. Ashe, amen, and so it is.